Well, you can't trust County.
Stop it. Are you in a freaking costume?
No.
What are creepers? What, pray tell, am I in for today on this?
What pray
Wednesday?
tell?
What pray tell?
I'm just having a little fun on a Wednesday. What's wrong with that?
Oh my God. Wait, I'm excited.
Well, hold on. Let me hop on. Oh!
Stop it. Stop it right now.
You ever heard of Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
I have, but what I've heard of is red light therapy. And as you well know, I'm very jealous I don't have one of these masks.
Oh my God. I had to wear it because I had to give a shout out to Solar Wave, because when we were talking about red light therapy, hold on, I gotta take this off. I'm literally blinded. I can't even see you. We were talking about red light therapy. I talked about the wand that I used in the past, and I never mentioned the name. It was Solar Wave. That was the brand. So they were so kind to send me a mask, which I've been using nightly.
That is so nice of them. Also, that one is like, because I feel like normally I can't see the nose and the eyes as much. Like with my friends, I feel like it's like more, like I feel like you could walk around.
I mean, I have full vision, although this is definitely compromising it. There are these eye covers they gave in the package. I have yet to put them in. I'm going to. Safety first, and you should do that as well. But thank you so much to Soloway for sending this. I just wanted to hop on and just show you a little bit of what's going on.
I'm so glad you did that, because now it's really inspiring me, because I have been using my little rinky dink. Look at that. Look at that face, y'all.
Wow.
Already therapized. I'm
so therapized. Don't I look plumper and 20 years younger?
I mean, you do.
It does. It feels really nice when it's on. What I like about it, the thing that makes this a differentiator from the wand, actually, like if I'm being very real, it is so easy. Like the wand, I think I kind of fell out of favor with because I just got tired of like having to do it all over my face for like 5-10 minutes. This I pop on, I answer emails.
There is something, it's so funny you say that, because there's something so like CEO tech coded about red light therapy masks to me. Like I keep seeing them in movies.
They feel a little
and
futuristic,
TV, where it's like always like some CEO is like in the middle of like answering emails at home and has their red light therapy mask on.
I'm that CEO, bitch.
You are.
Oh wait, 2 minutes in. Sorry, I forgot I'm editing.
2:28.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just having a nice, lovely, slow day, which I love. Yeah.
Nice. I've heard it's getting very, very cold over on the east side of the country.
It is. It's a little bit chilly, and I don't have my nipple covers on right now, so we might be cutting diamonds.
It's okay. You're wearing black. No one can see. But welcome back, everybody. Hi to the Creepers.
Hi, Creepers.
Now we are fully shifting into the holiday season. If you have not listened to the premium episode, I now have a little Christmas tree, which I swear to God, I'm looking over in this exact second, and it's on. It must be on a timer because I did not turn it on. Okay.
It's Spirit, baby.
I guess it
honestly,
wants to come
Spirit
on
has
camera.
been with you this week. Yeah. Well, it saw the red light
Interesting.
therapy mask and was like, hold on, let me have my moment.
Did I set a time? There's only 3 buttons on this. It's one says timer, so there's definitely a timer feature, but like, how can you, I thought that's just like a timer. Why did it turn on by itself? It wasn't on. Weird. Bizarre.
It was actually the Marshall's employee with a secret remote just taunting you even more.
If you guys listen to that premium episode, you will know exactly what that story is, because I was scolded by someone for purchasing an artificial tree. But anyway, I digress. Welcome back, everybody.
Hi, Creepers.
I wanted to do something a little bit different today, and I'm going to take a turn because this is a case that I think is a bit unusual for me to cover with what I usually bring. But I wanted to do research on it anyway, and actually the deeper I dove, the more fascinating it became that I didn't know very much about it, because this is, I think, one of the biggest true crime cases of the 20th century, the late 20th century. I'm just going to run a name by you really quick. Do you know the story around Klaas?
Klaas? I don't.
Yeah, let me go ahead. Let me just send you a quick collection of pictures, and Creepers, I will put this up on Reddit as well. I know some people were confused about where to find the case visuals. If you go down in the description of the show, we always have a link to our Reddit, like subreddit, And that's where we post all of the visuals. So if you want to follow along, you can click that as well and look at all of these pictures. But I will caution you and the creepers who are looking, don't go further than, I'm going to say, the second page for now.
Okay.
All right, let me drop this link your way. But just let me know, do you recognize, she's very young. She was only 12 years old when all of this happened.
That looks like such a familiar face. I mean, she looks like, the first thing I thought was like, she kind of looks like a little musical theater kid or something. Kind of has that like energy to her.
You really don't know this case?
Don't think is she?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that's my deep like subconscious or something that like does know this case. That's so weird. I swear to God, in this moment, hand to God,
Wow.
had no idea.
That's some crazy intuition, creepers. My God.
That
you
is
saw it
really,
here first.
I'm dead serious.
That was the
don't
first
know
thing
this
out of your
case.
mouth. She like, that's in my notes. Like one of the first defining like features of her personality is that she was obsessed with theater. She loved acting.
I mean, you know, I can't lie. So I swear to God, I did not know that ahead of time.
Okay, we are in on this. But any other just sort of like initial
or something.
Oh, maybe that's what it is. Yeah. But I mean, any just other initial takeaways? So you don't recognize her right off the bat, but you do have a little bit of an instinct or an intuition for Polly. But this case was so massive. I was actually surprised that I just had never really heard of the name, I guess, because I would consider it to rival something, I don't know, similar to like the media coverage of JonBenet at the time.
Really? Yeah, though, but I'm shocked that I haven't heard about it, or don't. Maybe I do know more about it. We'll just continue on, and I'll be like, "Wait,
yeah." Well, let me go ahead. Let me set up a little bit of the scene for you guys, and I'll give you a bit of the top line for you and the creepers, and maybe this might jog your memory. So, if I could set the stage here, I want everyone to sort of imagine a scenario as I take you back to 1993. We are in Northern California in a town called Petaluma. Have you heard of that? Because that was unfamiliar to me.
No, but that's got to be near here.
Near where?
If it's in Northern Virginia, it's probably
California. Sorry.
Oh, California.
I was like, and near where was that?
I thought you said Virginia. Sorry.
No, Northern California. It's up north.
Okay.
It's near closer to wine country. So I wrote down here that this place is considered a small town. It's right within Sonoma County. Think of it like I would say a quiet suburb outside of wine country, not like within it proper. But on a sleepy road, which I had written down was 4th Street, but I also saw conflicting reports saying it was, I think, Petaluma Boulevard. So there's a bit of discrepancy around that. We would zero in on the home of 12-year-old Polly Klaas, who on this night, she happened to be having a sleepover with 2 of her girlfriends. Their names are Kate and Jillian. You might see them. Do I have a picture of them maybe on the first or second page?
I think you do on the first page.
I do on the first page. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is an additional friend there as well. I mean, I think those pictures, I actually have no idea what the context of those pictures were, but they are Getty, which was strange, but those are 2 of her friends. So over the course of the night at the sleepover, the 3 girls, they would stay up like any other sort of slumber party, and they're giggling. They're putting on makeup on each other, kind of experimenting with that. And they're, eating pizza, they're having ice cream, and it's like anything else you could imagine from maybe your middle school days. But at a point in the night, there is a noise heard in that house. In Polly's bedroom, a bearded man would enter through her doorway, very stealth, close to 10:30 that night, and he is holding a knife that he took from her kitchen. So the 3 girls, they stood there completely petrified. They are unable to move, unable to speak, just from the sheer fear, and he ordered them to remain silent. They were then bound with their hands tied behind their backs. There were pillowcases placed over their heads. And on this night, that man did leave that home, and he would be on the run. But by the time the girls got the pillowcases off of their heads, they were able to sort of shimmy out of the restraints. They were hit with the gut-wrenching realization that there were only 2 of them. Polly was gone.
No.
So let's just pause there and just talk a little bit about that abduction scenario, because this is a very different style for me, again, personally, just of what I normally bring to CreepTime. But I just want to get your initial reactions to that scenario of a sleepover gone wrong with an intruder.
Oh my God. Well, my first thought is that's like a little kid's worst nightmare. Especially like being with your friends at the parents' home. Do we know?
So I was really interested in that as well. As far as I read, there were and I'll get into some of the backstory. It was Polly's mother and her then boyfriend, longtime boyfriend, Gene. And Polly had a younger half sister who I don't know was in the house, but I don't think Gene was in the house either this night. I think it was just Polly's mother, Eve, who had taken a sleeping pill.
Oh, God. Okay.
She slept through the majority of this, but it was also done incredibly like stealth, like very, very quiet.
Oh my God. So just reiterate for me again. So it's like he comes in, the three girls are in there, and then there's this moment where the lights come on and like the girls realize that Polly is no longer there.
So what exactly happened was they were in Polly's bedroom, all three girls, and they're normal sleepover. They're still up. They're still giggling. They're playing around. And Polly's bedroom door opens. And there is a man, a bearded man, standing in the doorway from the hallway. And he walks into the room and he's holding a kitchen knife. The girls freeze up. In fact, two of them don't even know how to process it. They actually thought it might have been a setup, like a joke or something.
Mm-hmm.
And before they can do anything, scream, yell, fight back, he tells them they all have to be quiet or he's going to kill them. He then used a collection of restraints, including cloth. There was fabric that he had like cut up. There were cords, I believe, from a gaming system in the room. And he used it to restrain all three girls. And then he placed pillowcases over their heads. Now, a period of time would go on, and we'll get into the exact timeline of how this all goes down and like why so much time would pass. But two of the girls eventually get brave enough to like shimmy out of their restraints, and they get the pillowcases off their heads. When they do, they realize that Polly is no longer in the room. She's been taken.
Oh my God. Oh God, that is truly, I can't imagine more of a nightmarish scenario for little kids. It's scary.
I mean, it was something like this town truly had never seen. This was a quiet, like sort of peaceful suburban town where everybody knew everybody. And we'll get into some of the witness statements, but I just wanted to kind of hit you right over the head with this in the beginning to give the weight of like how serious this is and how shocking it was for pretty much all of California. This caught media traction in the first 24 to 48 hours that was unrivaled at the time.
Yeah, I was going to say, I cannot believe that I don't know this story. I feel like this is something I would have been all over, like growing up hearing the lore of this story. Because I feel like I'm 12 years old again, like thinking back to sleepovers. I cannot imagine something more terrifying.
Yeah, well, I mean, before we're going to get into any of it, really, I think maybe we could just take a quick aside before we're going to get into the meat of the story and just say, welcome back to everybody to CreepTime, the podcast. Thank you for everyone who has been subscribing and following to the show, because I know we ask for that every single week. But thank you to all of the creepers, whether you are a longtime silent listener or you are brand new to the show. Thank you for sticking around. I think a lot of them came from the Halloween episodes. They were like, what is this?
Who are these crackpots?
Who you calling crackpot, baby? Who?
I'm calling me a crackpot, and I wear that well. I'm happy to wear that.
Baby, 90 minutes into an episode, I think we're both cracking. The pot is cracking, baby.
The pot of coffee is being made, and we're cracking.
And we are cracking.
We're cracking.
Well, thank you to everybody who's brand new. And, thank you for all of the positive comments, all of the positive reviews that you continue to leave on Apple and Spotify. That really, really helps to support the show. So if you have not done that already, please consider doing so. And I will also say, since we are approaching the holiday season, which I kind of teased in the beginning of this episode, this is an excellent time. If you are curious or at all interested in subscribing to Premium and unlocking over 70 hidden unedited episodes, this is your moment, baby. You can do so right on Spotify or you can do so on Apple Podcasts, but consider joining the Premiums and unlock all of those episodes to fill your long car rides, your plane rides, and your train rides.
That's right. And if you did find us from the Halloween episodes, we have some new premium costume episodes in there. So that's untapped territory for you.
Yeah. If you've ever wanted to see Fran Lebowitz and you've ever wanted to see Elizabeth Holmes, like duke it out.
Which you do.
We got it on camera. And I would also say this is a great time if you want even more content, especially some of the free content. You could dive into CreepTime After Dark. We have an entire comedy after show to help come down from some of the seriousness of these cases. So please consider giving that a listen as well. But the most important thing that I will round out this little buffer with, if you could share this show with someone that you know, whether you listen on Apple Podcasts or you watch it for free on Spotify, we have video podcasting. That is immensely helpful. If you can consider sharing it with a friend, a family member, a coworker, or if you just write about us online in the comments, every time you do that, you are getting these stories out to more people.
Yes.
So thank you to those that do that. And with all of that said and established, are you ready to dive into our backstory?
Oh, I'm so ready. I'm so intrigued right now.
Okay. Anything just else before we dive in, just from you looking at the pictures for a few more minutes, if there's anything else that you kind of got from that? I feel like once the door is opened with your intuition, we should lean into it and see what else you can kind of
Okay.
pluck.
I guess just looking at the trio there kind of at the bottom, I don't know. They kind of just like remind me in a weird way. It's almost like I'm looking at like friends of mine when I was little at like these sleepovers. So I'm like, were they also like theater kids? Like, were they kind of rambunctious? Is like where my thoughts were going. Like I'm intrigued by the personality of all three of these girls like being together. Because I think it could just kind of spell out how they all responded to that guy coming in. But, I guess we'll really never know except for their recounting of it.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I think they might have been theater kids. There is a girl in that photo. I should have cropped her out, but I just used the photo as is. One of those girls in that picture is not Polly. So that's just a picture that I found of the two friends. And then
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, there is a third girl in that who is completely unrelated to the case, although she is a friend of Polly's.
Okay,
so once
gotcha.
I think the first like 24 or 48 hours of like media coverage picked up on this, there were just a lot of people interested in the story. So they wanted to know every detail. What do the parents look like? What do her friends look like? Because the friends are instrumental to really, collecting some of like the key like witness statements of what really happened on that night.
Yeah.
But maybe I can color a little bit of the additional story here, not necessarily with talking about the town, because I think you get a good sense for what this neighborhood is like, but maybe just chatting a little bit more about Polly. So Polly, she lives in this tight-knit community, and she was considered incredibly friendly, a very charismatic, and I wrote down well-spoken young girl, but I actually think I meant to say like very confident, because I think she was really a theater kid, which we can certainly relate to. She was described to have a passion for acting. She loved theater. She loved the performing arts. And at the time, she was heavily involved in her community productions. So for some additional context, just to color a bit of her home life and what that dynamic was, because you asked a little bit about it, like who was in the house. I had read that when Polly was pretty young, her father, Mark, who was still very much in her life, him and his wife, then Eve, Polly's mother, divorced. So they had always lived separately. From what I remember reading, I don't think he lived in this town, but Polly was still visiting him regularly. And again, he was still very much involved. She just lived with Eve full time. For some additional context on like what was going on with their love lives, I believe her father had a fiance at the time. I don't have her name at hand, but like I said, Eve, her mother, had a longtime boyfriend. I think his name was Gene, and Polly had a younger half sister. Unconfirmed if it was from that relationship. Now, I had also read, okay, I believe I covered that. Yeah, Gene in the house, because I think I just wanted to set the stage with that because I found it very confusing. I'm like, did nobody hear this go down? I really think it was just Eve in the house, and I have confirmation. She said she took a sleeping pill.
Okay. Oh, God, the guilt she must live with. That is so sad.
There is so much to this case, I think, by the time we reach the end of it, where it just becomes really apparent. I'm like, any which way the wind could have blown could have changed the trajectory of where this was going and what was going to happen and who might have seen something. So it's difficult to like frame it all in that context, but nobody in this town could have anticipated like something as random and heinous as this would happen. But that might be a good time to shift into the timeline of the night and talk a little bit about the sleepover. Unless you have any other questions or commentary just on her backstory or setup.
I mean, the only thing that my intuition is dinging on is like, if she was doing community theater, like did adults have like access to her, sort of getting to know her that her parents weren't aware of?
That's a really good angle. Damn.
But that's just where my head was at the moment.
No, that's what I would ask that too, to be honest. Because like, that's the first thing you think of. You're like, okay, who are the adults who are around her? Who are the adults at school? Who are the adults in community theater? Those are the only two avenues you could imagine. Sports, maybe.
Yeah.
But what do we know about October 1st, 1993, the Friday night where this all went down at the Klaas family home? So if we start our timeline, I'm going to actually launch us in, I think, right around 8:30 p.m. That's when I have the earliest confirmation of at least all three girls being in the house, because I believe Polly and her friend Jillian were already at Polly's house. They were kind of waiting on Kate. 8:30 is when Kate's mom pulls up in the driveway. Kate jumps out of the car and all three girls go into the house. It is set to be a fun night. From what I had read about what they had planned, I mean, they were going to order pizza. Her mom had gone out and she bought ice cream for the girls. And I actually wondered when you brought it up whether or not her friends might have been theater kids as well, because I read that they were trying on a bunch of costumes.
Oh.
And I wasn't sure if that had to do with like a play they were in that they were getting ready for, or if it could have been gearing up for Halloween, because we are pretty close to Halloween time, even though it is October 1st. It comes right around the corner. And they were really just going to do that all night, just like have fun, play video games. I believe Polly had a Nintendo. So that's what the girls could recall. They were like, everything just seemed totally chill, totally kosher until around 9:45. And that's when Polly's mother first came into her bedroom. And I think we've all experienced that, where like a parent comes in and they're like, it's getting late. It's time to just keep the noise level down a little bit. That's essentially what happened. Her mom came in and I guess we learned this later, but her mom was suffering from a really bad migraine, which is why she was like, what an inopportune time to have three middle school girls in my house. She was like, I think girls, you just need to keep it a little quiet, but just to be sure and make sure she was going to get enough sleep to sleep off the headache, she would end up taking a prescription sleeping pill, which sets the stage for why she did not wake up, because we would learn that within the next hour, something is about to go down in this house. Isn't that wild? Like from 9:45 to the 10:30 timestamp when the bedroom door opens, how little time would pass between
45 minutes.
That moment of like, her entire world is about to change.
Yeah. And it's like your immediate thought is like, were they stalking the house? Like, how long had they been lurking there? Like, it's just, oh,
yeah.
God.
Like, what's the story that's going on this street or outside of the family home? And I do have some really interesting witness statements for you and the creepers that will color a bit of the story before the stuff in the home took place. But then we roll around to that 10:30 timestamp. So according to the statements that were collected from the two friends, we roll around to 10:30 and there is a slight creak in the hallway, and then Polly's bedroom door very slowly opens and all of the girls fall silent. There is a tall, burly, scruffy, bearded man standing in the doorframe, and he is holding a very, very large kitchen knife, almost like I wrote down a Michael Myers knife. And he didn't say a word. He's huge too. He's a very big guy and he's imposing. He just walks straight into the bedroom and the girls kind of freeze and like back up, because two of them, like I said before, were in confusion. They had wondered if this was like some kind of a joke, like a Halloween joke or something that Polly set up. They didn't really know what to make of it. It was unbelievable.
Or if it was like her stepdad or something. I'm sure they probably had met him before. Could have thought it was him.
Well, I mean, they could see the man's face. That was the thing.
Oh,
so,
they could.
I mean,
Okay.
Yeah, they could. Yeah, he wasn't masked or anything. He was a bearded man. So they saw his facial hair and they could see his face, which is, I think, why maybe they initially thought they were like, could this be like someone she knows, like a friend of her dad's or something? Because like, why would someone come into the bedroom and not disguise their face? Unless something really bad was about to happen. Yeah. But this was the closest thing I could, when I was reading about this, I'm like, this is like the closest thing I could think of to Ellen Halbert's case, honestly. Like the thought of someone like being in a bedroom and 1 second everything is fine and your guard is down, and the next a stranger is standing in the corner or coming through the door.
Yeah, just like a classic intruder scenario. This is
I mean, in that one,
freaking scary. Like in my mind, the reason why I said the thing about like not being able to see his face, I'm like still envisioning for some reason the lights being off and like the girls just seeing the silhouette of like a bearded man. It's actually like 10,000 times scarier that he just walked in and had a knife.
That was the thing. It was like, it was so unassumingly terrifying because the lights were on, because the girls were being loud and rambunctious, and because they had just seen her mom 45 minutes prior. They were like, none of this makes sense, that like we could be in danger. But that very quickly changed. Once the girls kind of look to Polly and see that she is just as in the dark as they are, I think they get the immediate memo that this is real, this is happening. And he very quickly tells them that they have to remain dead silent. I believe what he actually said was, if you say a word or scream, I will slit every single one of your throats. So they immediately realized what was going down. Over the course of the next hour, the girls silently followed instructions from this man, and he told them to sit. He told them to put their hands behind their backs, and he used duct tape, I believe, to gag their mouths. In the middle of doing this, he's starting to ask like whispered questions too. And I think he's really only directing this at Polly, because he first asked, he was like, whose house is this? And then he said, who lives here? Who else is in the house? Is there money hidden? Is there jewelry? And Polly is answering every single question. She's keeping like very, very even, especially for a 12-year-old girl. She's just being brave enough to say like, there's a place in the home. There's a safe that has money. It has jewelry. I can take you to it. And the other two girls are just silently weeping because they don't know where this is going to go. A million thoughts could race through your mind about how maybe this is going to end if you're in that situation. But if he had led in the beginning with asking about money, maybe you might think that's all he wants, right? Mm-hmm. It's a robbery. But even though he's asking these questions to Polly, her and her friends were realizing that he's not really taking any action on them. Like he keeps just sort of like filling the silence of the room with those questions, but he seems to have no intent of actually going to grab anything, or asking her to take him to those places. Mm-hmm. So what was the goal? Now, despite answering all of those questions, they did not leave the room. And once they were all tied, he used pillowcases that he ripped off of the pillows on the bed and he put them over the heads of the girls. He then leaned in and he told the girls, who all three were next to each other at that time, start counting backwards from 1,000, which they did. So a lot of time would then pass before Kate and Jillian, they sort of start to test the limits of the silence in the room and wondering, is he still in here? Is he still even in the house? Are we able to scream? Do you think we can get free? So they start wiggling and kind of maneuvering their hands, and they are able to get their restraints off and very carefully pull the pillowcases off of their heads. And that is the moment they realize Polly is no longer in the room. Mm-hmm. They instantly jumped to their feet. They remove the rest of the ropes and the restraints, and they cautiously step into the hallway and make their way to Polly's mother's room, which shockingly was just across the hall, like right down the hall. Very, very close. And she was completely out cold for the duration of this. They get into the bedroom and they just start going ballistic, like to try to wake her up and telling her, shouting at her, Polly's gone. Polly's gone. A man took her. That is where we're at in this timeline. I'm going to pause there before we move into the next phase of this, when police actually arrive at the house.
I am so shocked that he made them be like verbal, like not knowing or knowing that there's somebody across the way. Like it just, I would think, and I say knowing or not knowing, because I feel like before he came in, he would have had to have at least looked in a window, hopefully, or been scoping to see if there was anybody else in the house. And I feel like if he saw the mom in the house, there's no shot that he would make the girls be like verbal and count backwards from 1,000. But then again, I'm like, did he even know?
If he told them to do that out loud. He could have said something because he was whispering through all of it. He might have just said, count in your heads back from 1,000.
Okay.
With no known like instruction after.
Okay.
But because I think most of this, the way that the two girls described it, it went down very quietly. I mean, he had set the stage from the beginning of walking in. He said, if any of you talk, I will slit your throats.
Yeah. And also, they had duct tape over their mouths. The other thing I was thinking about was he purposefully directing all of this at Polly because she was really the only thing that he wanted? And it was like getting to know her in that moment was a thrill for him in some capacity. Because I just was
wondered that too. It seemed very targeted.
Yeah. It seemed like there was like a connection there. But yeah, but even still, like I am shocked that he is doing this. I would assume knowing that there's a mom in the house. Like, I don't know how, I mean, it would be very bold for him to just have entered without sort of like in those, I don't know how long he was outside, but like scoping to see if there was anybody in there.
I question if he did. I mean, so much of this, it might be shocking and it might also be like difficult for us to conceive, but it almost seems like he was doing so much of this on the fly. Yeah. And investigators lead with that too. The second that they start arriving to the home, they were like, so much of this just seemed to be both unplanned, but also all the chips kind of fell in his favor, where like it just happened to be that only her mom was home. It just happened to be that this was the one night she took a sleeping pill and
Mhm.
that all the girls remained silent and followed his instructions. Like a lot of it just happened to work out for him because when he does
Yeah.
come in, one of the first things he asks them, he said, I think he asked to confirm, he goes, whose house is this? And that's when Polly spoke up and she was like, it's mine. And then he said, who else is in this house? So he's confirming it. I don't know
Oh,
that he
that's
fully
right.
even knows it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. God,
But-
even still, takes a lot of guts to do that. Like the second she said, like, if she said my mom's in this house, it's
She could have
just
said anything. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, she could have used that and said, like, my dad's here. My mom and dad are both here. They're right across the hallway. But maybe that plays into the fear of like, if he's prepared to kill me, does that mean he's prepared to kill them? I'm tied up at this point. I can't even like run to call 911. So do I want to tell him that maybe my mom's in the house?
right. Oh my God.
So what happens once police arrive? This was an unmistakable scenario of a break-in and a kidnapping. Polly is gone. So investigators waste absolutely no time searching the room for anything that could have been left behind that would tell us who this guy is. Because at this point, he's just a mystery man. The girls did not recognize him. They said the bedroom when they walked in, meaning police and the investigative team, it was a disaster. So clearly it had been run through like a tornado where this guy came in and once he had the girls sort of under his thumb and they were quiet and he was getting them restrained, he had started kind of like ripping through the bedroom, which also in my mind was reading as like noisy.
Yeah.
It is kind of crazy like how much of this happened and how quickly it happened without any detection from across the hall. There were straps and random strips of cloth on the ground. I believe he cut up cords from the Nintendo. He had cut up pieces of cloth or fabric, and he had cut the strap from one of Polly's purses. And that's what he was using to restrain the girls, which that's all kind of like material that I feel like they could probably break free from with just a little bit of wiggling. It doesn't seem like something that would be good for a restraint for a long period of time. But this is kind of all that's left behind. It's just the remnants of what was there to bind them and gag them. There's really no additional evidence that could tell them who the mystery man was other than the witness statements from the two girls. I'm not sure how well connected this family was, but this was of immediate concern to law enforcement, and it was escalated by that night to the FBI.
Wow.
I believe by midnight, they had investigators from the FBI in the house, which that's why I was saying, I'm like, this case is something that feels like it rivals the significance and like the momentum of JonBenet.
It's like the precursor. I mean, and it kind of explains now why JonBenet might have gotten as blown up as it did, because I don't know obviously where this is going to go, but like if this is still unsolved and they don't know what happened, I'm sure when the JonBenet stuff happened, it's paralleling it that people were like, oh my God, like referencing back to this case being like, how could they let this happen again almost, you know?
Because JonBenet was, what year do you remember? Was it 94? 96. Okay, so only a couple years out, like 3 years after this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure a lot of people did make the connection initially. And JonBenet, I will say, was sort of solved, I think, much quicker, or not solved, but JonBenet was found, obviously, much quicker in comparison to where this will go.
Okay.
So how drawn out this would become, I think also played into how many resources and how much like media momentum it was able to accumulate. But I will call that out. There were major resources right off the bat put forward into finding Polly. She is out there somewhere, and it's this terrifying feeling in town because, again, this is a quiet neighborhood, and people were just wondering. They were like, well, as soon as everybody heard, they're like, could my house be next? Like, what do you mean a man came in and took a girl from a sleepover?
Yeah.
So I believe it was the FBI who did step in that night, as I mentioned, and they were pretty dismayed from the lack of evidence that all they could take from the scene were really the materials from the room that were used to bind the girls. So they ended up pulling up the carpet, which I thought was interesting.
Oh.
They said, let's take the whole carpet from the bedroom.
To like test it for fibers and stuff?
I think so. I think because DNA was still relatively new. I think DNA, like real like DNA and forensics came around, I think 1992. Not to say they wouldn't have had access to it, but I think it was more so they're like, we got to find fibers in the car.
Yeah,
I mean, Maybe it could be a hair, maybe it could be like clothing fibers, but something more to tell the story. But the glaring realization from one of the investigators, I wrote down his name was Ed Fryer. I do have a picture of him, but I don't want you to scroll down too far yet because for whatever reason
I'm still
I put him
on
on the
first
last
page, by the way.
Oh, you can scroll down to the second, I think. In fact, I think on the second, you'll see pictures of the bedroom. Did I include him?
Oh, yeah. Oh my God.
Does that color this a bit different?
It's making my stomach churn because I just feel like it's like my little bedroom. I feel like so many like 90s born like girls can relate to this. It just like looks like all the stuff I had in mine.
It feels very familiar. While I was doing the research and going through the imagery, I'm like, I feel like I know this home. I know this girl. Like I know this bedroom. It just felt very, very real. All of it felt tangible. But Ed Fryer, who is the lead investigator on this, or at least the first one, he's looking at the information at hand, that the information he got from the girls, from the family, and what's been collected from the scene. And what he's really nervous about is that this looks like it's shaping up to what he feared most. It's kind of reading as an opportunistic abduction, which is notoriously difficult to investigate because there is no real link between perpetrator and the victim. It's not a family member or a friend or a coworker situation. It could be anybody they're looking for. So the FBI, they turned back to the bedroom and they ended up doing a further forensic sweep, and they were just scouring any corner of that room. They're like, there has got to be something we can find here. And they were dusting for a lot of fingerprints, I was reading, and they were, again, dismayed because almost every fingerprint they're finding is connected to somebody in the family. It's Polly's, it's her sisters, her parents, like the stepdad, her friends. They're not finding anything from the outside until they get to one tiny corner of her metal like bedpost, and they found a partial palm print. I don't think I'd ever even heard of this, a palm print. They dusted for it. It was not a match to anybody who had been in the home. They believed this print could be linked to their guy. But the issue with a palm print is that even if you can dust it and you can then photograph the print, most of the fingerprint databases at the time, even though they were still pretty early, it's 1993, they were all based on fingerprints. Like when they had like intakes, they would take a fingerprint, not a palm print. So the only way this would be useful to them is if eventually down the line they were ever able to find their suspect and get his print and then match it up one to one. But it's something, right?
Yeah.
This was the step forward that they needed to keep the momentum of the case going. And this caught fire in the media and in the local news like you would not believe. I believe within the first week, there were calls from major celebrities to get involved and raise money for this. Oprah Winfrey was involved. And believe it or not, Winona Ryder was involved because this is her hometown.
Oh my God.
She ponied up $200,000 as a reward for any information that could lead to Polly's
in a
retrieval.
moment of levity in my head, I was like, was this pre or post shoplifting accusations? I was like, was this her doing her goodwill? Okay, gotcha.
No, it was pre. Okay. Yeah, this was her hometown though. And I think maybe she felt a connection to Polly being like a young girl who was interested in acting. And I believe she even did a press conference for the family to help raise money and get more of the word out. But I don't know. I just feel like between like, I don't know how much the case kind of revved up immediately, but also like how hard the FBI was going, just like scraping at the surface to try to find any additional evidence. It reminded me, I'm like, I think the 90s were really like a pivotal period for forensics. It was kind of amazing to me they even found or thought to like collect the palm print.
Yeah, for sure. And I also was thinking, like, just looking at these pictures, I was like, what is it about a case like Polly's or a case like JonBenét's that people are so obsessed with? And I think part of it is that, like, when you've got a really kind of like tight-knit, close-ish family, like just looking at these pictures, she looks like such a happy kid, even though she did have divorced parents. There's something about like almost like a child star element to a kid like her or a kid like JonBené, and not even just because of the like theatrical or the pageantry background, but it's just like their faces are almost like undeniably like they stick in your memory. I don't know why.
Well, I think it's because you see yourself in them in a lot of ways. Like if you're a young girl or you have young girls, but it might have been in combination with her image that was plastered on every news station and every, corner in this county. But I also think the scenario itself is something that really disrupts the sense of safety that people feel when they hear a story like that. What do you mean? In a quiet neighborhood, a random man just walked into a home in the middle of a young girl's sleepover and just took a girl.
Yeah.
Just took a girl from her home when her mother was in the house.
And also like, why her? Why not the other two, you know?
And it makes people feel this sense of unease of like, not even just this county, but like in knowing the possibility of that, could I be next?
Mm-hmm.
Could that happen to someone like me? And I think that's where the fear comes from and why these cases catch crazy traction. But within just the first 24 hours, like all of this probing, it had led to a ton of news coverage. Like I said, it caught like wildfire. Every family in town had heard about Polly. I mean, they knew Polly, so they had heard about the story and that she was abducted from her home. People were coming together and they were really, really banding, I think, as a community to try to find her. They were going to go door to door with police and canines. And I believe almost every search or every home in the town was searched.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God.
This was like some serious police work they were doing. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the pressure from the media or, again, like how well connected this family was that the FBI jumped in so quick. But the search efforts were serious, very serious. So the pressure is on to try to find Polly within the first couple of days. They are interviewing every neighbor, every teacher. They're wondering, could this be something at school? Like, why would a man pick this girl, pick this home if police or investigators are saying it could be opportunistic? Is it this or is it that? And there is also this very quick window, I think, where police realized they could zero in on the timeline or the time frame of when the man might have been outside of the house, because we do get a witness statement, our very first one, outside of the two girls. And this one, surprisingly, also comes from a kid, no less. His name was Thomas Georges, and I believe he was either in middle school or high school. I think he was pretty young from what I can remember. And he was on foot with a couple of friends. And I believe he was heading that night closer to around, I think, 9 p.m. to a video rental place like a Blockbuster. And he remembered just for a second, because again, he knew Polly. Everybody knew everybody in this town. He was passing Polly's house and he remembered just for a second, he thought he saw in the shadows outside of her house in the yard what looked like a man with a beard who was lurking in her yard. He did not think much of it because, again, this is one of those places where kids and families believe terrible things don't happen here. They don't happen in my town. And when you're not used to danger, I don't think that you know to look for danger.
Sure.
But he surely did remember what he saw. And it was an exact match to the visual description that the girls gave of the abductor. And then there was another witness statement that I read about that came that same night. This one is actually chilling to me. So it was from a younger man who I think was a little bit older than Thomas. This was a man named Sean Bush. And I believe he lived, I read that he lived in a cottage, I guess a home that was like right near Polly's, but he had this very unique like shot through his window, this like viewpoint towards the back door of her house. Like he could see through her backyard to the door. He recalled right at around 10:30 p.m. that night, he was home, I believe, with a friend, and I think he was playing video games. He thought he saw a person who was lurking outside of Polly's back door, like the back door to the home. Again, he didn't think much of it because when you're not used to danger, you don't look for it. And the man didn't really look suspicious. He just looked kind of out in the open. So he wondered, he was like, does he live there? Is he a friend? I mean, he must know them if he's at their back door or something. All he remembered was seeing it. But again, it was an exact visual match to the description the girls gave. This was enough, at least, I believe, to back up the timeline and suggest how quickly this might have gone down. Because if he saw him at 10:30 and the girls remembered him coming through the bedroom door just after 10:30, that means this man saw him minutes before he was in that bedroom with the girls.
Oh my God.
I couldn't get that out of my head, like how fast that was. I think I had imagined him, if this boy, Thomas, previously had seen him lurking around the house at 9 p.m., I'm like, did he sneak into the house and was he like hiding in there for a while?
Oh,
Just like listening and like plotting, like hiding in the kitchen, in the dark of the kitchen with the knife, just like working up the nerve to go to the bedroom. It sounds like no. It sounds like the second he got through a window on the lower level, got into the house, he grabbed the knife and walked straight to the bedroom. No hesitation.
Oh my God. So that first witness, he just sees him in the yard. Like he doesn't see him in the house. Okay.
Thomas sees him lurking around the yard. And actually it was so quick and he was in the dark. He just like didn't think about it. He was like, I wonder who that was.
Yeah. But it kind of, for me at least, I kind of know if this is true that he could have been lurking and looking and kind of observing and seeing what was going to go down. Because I guess the mom was still awake at that point. So he could have
Yes.
been, he could have seen, he could have just been observing. Oh, God, it's giving me chills.
Yeah, that's a terrifying thought as well, that for maybe 90 minutes before he actually enters the home, he's just outside listening to the girls, because the part that I did not mention was that Polly's window was open. He did not come through her window. However, that's what he remembered hearing, I believe.
Oh, God.
Voices through the window. But with this confirmation of the timeline, the search for this would kick up even further, and it becomes a monumental news story. The hunt for Polly has become one of the largest child abduction search efforts in U.S. history within its first week. I believe in just the first 2 days of this search, there were over 4,000 volunteers hunting for Polly, which then peaked to 20,000 volunteers.
My God.
This included all of the neighboring counties. They were desperately searching fields. They were looking in creeks, back roads. They were searching rural properties. There is nothing. No one is finding even a trace of this girl. So before I go any further, maybe let's just pause for a second, just recap a little bit of what we just talked about, but also touch on how serious and how massive the search became. I don't think I'd ever conceived of a 20,000 person volunteer team looking for one missing girl.
I mean, my God, it sounds like it's almost like the size of, I don't know how big this town is, but I mean, I'm thinking where I'm from, a small town, we're about 100,000 people, or I guess it's a small city, but like, a fifth of that, everybody's looking for this one girl.
Do you have
like
100,000 people in your town?
Yeah. I think so.
That.
I think at this point. Yeah. It's every time I say small town, people are like, it's a city.
Friendly, I was like, baby, I'm under the 20K mark.
Yeah, exactly. But like, think about that. It's like half of your town is going to find her, just to put it in perspective. Like, that's crazy.
I wonder, what do you think that came from? I mean, obviously there was, again, like a huge push from the media. So people are just repetitively seeing the imagery and hearing the story. But I think there's like a real, I don't know, collective defense mechanism from like a community in this way, where they're like, this is not going to go down on our watch or something.
I think there's an element too about like the sleepover situation that's just like extremely sinister and probably upsetting for parents, especially because it's like there's a time period, I think, where parents get really nervous to like, drop their kids off for their first sleepover. It's kind of like letting their kid go. And I think for a lot of parents, this is probably like, oh my God, like the thought of that going down, and like I had dropped my kid off at that, at somebody else's house, and this is what could have happened. Like, it's just something about the sleepover element. And then also, again, I think it's just her being sort of like a really cute little girl that I think people for some reason latch onto. I do think that has something to do with it as well. But just wild how fast it kicked up.
Yeah, I was reading that this was one of the first, or like an early case where the internet was really used, like early versions of the internet to spread the word about it. And there is another case that we've covered that I was thinking of that felt similar to that, where it was like one of the first cases where Facebook was really used to like spread the word. This, I think it was mostly through like emails or email chains, or like early versions of websites of like missing children or missing teens. But a lot of people had credited that. They were like, because of the early use of the internet and like plastering her face on it and her story, that is in part why this case caught so much media attention at a national level.
Yeah.
But there is this big, like heavy looming question, even just 2 days into it. Where is Polly Klaas? So we're now a couple days into the investigation, and a break would come. A phone call from Polly herself. So Polly's father, Mark, who again, the family, I just have to say, are in like complete ruins over this, obviously. And her father did not live in this home, so he's in his home. And he happens to be there, I think, just waiting by the phone, because everybody is hopeful that they'll get a call with reassuring news or some like glimmer of optimism. He is sitting at home when the phone rings, and he is in disbelief when he picks it up, and it's a static call of what sounds like his daughter's voice, and she's crying. She sounded terrified, and she's hushed, and she says, "I'm in a motel room." And she said she didn't know where she was. And she said the man who took her stepped out for a second, but he's about to be back. She can't talk long. But before Mark, her father, could give any other information or get any other information, I guess, from her to help like find her, locate his daughter. The call is cut off. Polly is gone again.
No.
Which is a horrible, the gut punch of that feeling of helplessness. I couldn't get out of my head of you're just trying so hard. You're running on adrenaline, and hearing your missing child's voice, but also trying to be practical and get as much useful information as you can, because the call was too short to be traced after the fact. And nobody was prepared for this. Nobody expected it to happen.
Sure. Also, I feel like a parent at that point, your mind is already, you're trying to keep your hope alive, but your mind is already racing to the place of my child's gone. My child's gone forever. My child might be dead. The thought of picking the phone up and hearing her voice and knowing she's alive and that emotional roller coaster is insane.
I'm just going to tell you in the creepers right now, you're not prepared.
Okay, I know I'm not prepared.
If this is if this is the climb of that coaster, just settle in, because this is about to get really, really horrible.
Oh God.
So that call, like I said, it was unexpected. Nobody was prepared for it. So the trace could not be made. But once he told investigators, they were sure that if she called once, she's going to call back and they're going to be prepared. So they set up there was a name for this back in the 90s, but I wrote down its trace system. I think it was called a tap system, where they could tap a phone and listen in. They're sitting, you've seen it in movies and stuff, where they're sitting in the living room and the family member waits by the phone for it to ring. And the second it does, they've got a recording device going and they're listening in too. So they were hoping she would call back, and she did. Again, the phone rings. Mark picks up the phone and he hears the same voice. It's that weeping voice, sounds like Polly, and she's in that hushed whisper, and she's saying the same thing. She's like, I can't talk long. He's going to come back. And he can barely keep her on the phone long enough for investigators to get a trace, but they do. They get a trace on this. It is a home address that is only 30 or 40 miles out from, I believe, Mark's home. And police, they take no time. They get in their cars, they rush, and they storm through the door of this home with their guns drawn. But when they get in there, they are shocked to get into this house, and they find an ordinary family.
No.
It's a mother, it's father, there's a teenage girl, and they're screaming. They're get on the ground, get on the ground. Because they don't know what's going on. This could still be the abduction scenario. After the panic kind of dies down and they settle in and start questioning this family, it becomes very, very apparent what this was. The calls from Polly, the crying and the whimpering, it was a prank made by the teenage daughter.
No. Oh my God.
This girl.
Oh my God. That makes me want to cry.
Said she was dared by her friends to call Polly's father, Mark, and pretend to be Polly, saying that she was abducted and was in a hotel room. I can't think of anything more messed up. It's it was stunning. It was stunning to read about that someone would do that.
Yeah, that's extremely upsetting. And it's weird because my first thought when you mentioned that Polly called, I was like, we're sure. He was sure he could tell it was his daughter. Because most parents, they would know in 2 seconds. But because of the nature of the first call, it being so quick, that the thought did cross my mind. I was like, are we positive? That is so disappointing. Oh my God.
I kind of buried the lead on that one, but I kind of needed to do that in order to give the same effect as when I first read it, because I had gotten my hopes up as well. I was like, oh my God, at least this is something. I'm they're going to be able to prepare for that. They can trace that call. It traces back to a random home 40 miles out with some horrible teenage girl who would put this family through even more agony. And also it was a static call. She was fake crying and she was whispering. So he's just, you want to fit the puzzle pieces as a parent. You're like, this is Polly. It has to be Polly.
Yeah.
It's
also follow any lead you have at that point.
So effectively what this does though, it's a horrible thing. And I have no information about what happened to this teenage girl after that, but I hope it was something very serious and that she faced consequences. Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh my God.
Not
Now
to
there is actually a fly in here. That was a real fly, not a piece of
really? I didn't see it this time.
Now you'll never believe me. But the problem with this is that it kind of sets police and investigators back to square one, because again, they still don't have any evidence. They still don't know where she is. And this was the one lead that they had.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kicked back to square one. And the search and the media efforts, they do not stop, because this has been going on for days. But quickly, the days become weeks. The weeks become months. We are now 2 months into a relentless search, and there is still nothing that's been found. until we reach this one day, and there is another clue discovered. I'm going to direct you. I don't have a picture of this woman. Why did I not include that? I don't think I could find one actually. Because I think I did look it up, but there is a woman. Her name is Dana Jaffe, and she lives kind of far out. I would say, I think it's like an hour away from Petaluma, where Polly grew up. So she makes a call, and she owned a relatively large and wooded property, and she called her county sheriff, and she said she found something strange in the woods off from her house, and she wanted them to come out and inspect it with her. So police end up showing up, and she kind of walks them out to this like location, and there is a bizarre collection of items. There are dirty and scattered clothing items on the ground in the woods. It looks like a silk cloth that was kind of tied up or like fastened into some kind of like a hood or like a headscarf, maybe even a restraint. There was also tape all over the ground, and there are a pair of little girls' tights that were tied up into a knot. But the real chilling realization from this woman, Dana, was about a potential connection to these items and a man that she remembered on her property 2 months prior. So according to a family friend and a babysitter of Dana's, I'm going to explain how this night went down. 2 months prior, October 1st, the same night Polly was abducted, there was a woman named Shannon who was the friend of Dana's, and she had been there at the house, and I think she was babysitting or house sitting, and she remembered that when she was leaving the house after locking up, because Dana lives on this like very vast property with like a long dirt driveway, she's pulling out through like the wooded dirt driveway, and she saw a man who was like pulled off on the side of it. Again, he's like on Dana's property trespassing, and his car is like kind of like swerved off to the side of this dirt road, like near the tree line. And he's standing outside of the car, and he approaches her car. He stops her car. So she just partially rolls down her window, and he comes up and he's like, hey, he's like, my car is stuck like in the mud. I can't get it out. He's like, can you get out of your car to help me? Shannon sensed that something was off with this guy. And she's like, I really can't get out of the car. She's like, I can make a call for you if I can get into town. And he's starting to get kind of aggressive at her window. And he's like, just get out of the car and help me. Like, I need someone to help me push. She gets the gut reaction. She's like, drive away, just pull off, which was very smart. But she, again, has to warn Dana. She's like, there's a guy on your property. So she drives 2 miles into town, gets to a payphone, calls Dana and tells her, she's like, you got to call police. Dana then gets to a payphone and she calls police. I believe she had her daughter in her car with her at the time. And she also had a baseball bat. So she was hoping to get to the scene and approach this man. By the time Dana got there, the car is there. So she definitely can confirm there was someone trespassing, but the man is not seen. But police are still on their way. By the time police arrive, they do find the man because he's back at his car. He looked filthy. He reeked of body odor and booze. He had definitely been drinking. He had leaves in his hair. Like, it looked like he was rolling around on the ground. So they start to question him, and they gave him a sobriety test. They end up searching his car. They searched his person. They even ran his license, and he had a clean driving record. So there's really nothing they can get him on. I'm like, well, he apparently was drinking and driving, but again, I guess it was the 90s and it's a small town, so they weren't gonna get him on that, thinking they were being like good cops for the night. But there's nothing in the car that was suspicious, and he passed the sobriety test technically. And even though I read that he cracked open a beer and started drinking it while he was talking to cops.
Oh my God. Well,
so he's off. He's definitely off.
This might be like really stupid. Were the DUI laws any different? Were they maybe less egregious back then? Like,
possibly. Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe.
I don't know. Like, maybe if your blood alcohol level was a certain amount, like you could technically, it was all right. Yeah. I have no idea. I feel like
even
in the 90s,
it's definitely like it would be a no-go to crack open a beer in front of that you pull from your car while you're talking to officers who are already questioning your sobriety.
Insane.
So the officers are like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Pour that out right now." And initially, this guy, he's really not cooperative with them. He's definitely eccentric and he's kind of off, but once they kind of threatened him, and I think they were giving him an ultimatum, they're like, if you're not going to cooperate with us, we're just going to take you in for trespassing, because that's what you're doing, buddy. You're on someone else's property. Because he's trying to explain to them. He's like, I was sightseeing and then I pulled off on the side. My car got stuck in the mud. So I'm just stuck here trying to get off of the property. But again, he passed the sobriety test and he had the clean driving record from his license. So they can't really take him in for anything. So they just end up helping him tow his car out, and they let him go on his way, having no idea that the man they interacted with on that night was Polly's abductor. But now that this collection of items 2 months later have been found near the tree line or in the woods on Dana's property, and they seem to be connected or belonging to a little girl, people are starting to connect the dots, at least police are, and they're like, we need to close in on whoever that guy was that we had stopped and like chatted with 2 months prior. Polly might be out there somewhere, and she might be held captive. And if she is, she's somewhere close by. So they end up bringing in a new search team to this county of 30 different people, like 30 investigators, like professionals, and they have canines, and they are determined to find this girl. And I'm going to say it again. I said it before, but the relentless efforts 2 months into this are just unbelievable to me.
Yeah. And this is like this. Okay. So this interaction with the drinking and stuff, this was on the same night that she was abducted.
October 1st.
And then this investigation is happening like in December?
2 months after the fact, because that was when Dana, the woman who owned the property, happened to be out in like the wooded area, and she found these items. And she's like, by the way, found items that look like they belong to a little girl. And remember, there was a guy on my property who had some very weird things to say to police, and you guys let him go. Go look into him. Yeah.
That was very smart of her.
So police do connect those dots. And in the midst of these efforts, and I think the hunt for Polly and all of these questions, with police about who they interacted with 2 months prior, they had a name, and they were definitely looking for someone. And it actually, it could have taken much longer, because I think any of the searches they had initially jumped on where they were trying to like find his address or like locate him in a certain place, they didn't immediately find him. They just happened to find this guy just by a routine, like pulling over. They just pulled him over on the side of the road. And it was the responding officer who realized once he got his license, he goes, oh my God, this is the guy they radioed about. This is Richard Allen Davis. This is the suspect. So Richard, once they, get him out of the car, and additional responding officers, I believe a sheriff came in, and they arrest him. They don't immediately lead. They bury the lead as well. And they're like, this is not connected to Polly. He just had other warrants out for his arrest, I think, for something having to do with his probation, because as we would learn, this was not his first run-in with the law. The reason he wasn't really looked at with a suspicious eye when he was initially pulled over or questioned by police on October 1st was because when they ran his license, he did have a clean driving record, but he had a horrible legal record. It just did not pull up the two. The system was only about the driving record. So he has had a long history and run-in with the cops for some very, very shifty stuff. To give you some context on him, he is a 39-year-old scruffy drifter, and he had various arrest records that would date back all the way to the 70s, including charges for robbery, burglary. He had assault charges, and wouldn't you know it, abduction. He was believed to have been convicted not once, twice. Twice he was convicted for abduction. I believe the first one also came with a rape conviction.
Oh my God.
I hope I'm not getting that wrong, but his latest was in 1984. He was convicted for an abduction or attempted abduction of a young woman, and he had been serving time for that sentence. He was released early. He had only served half of the time he was sentenced to, and he had been released on June of 1993, in June of 1993, which would be just a few months before Polly would go missing. But again, they're kind of like struggling to build the through line here. They're like, well, what does he have to do with Petaluma? Like, why this town? Why this girl? Well, wouldn't you know, Petaluma happened to be where Richard's mother lived, whom he was trying to visit on the night of October 1st.
Oh, God. So it's like old habits die hard.
Yeah, I think, well, there's more to the story, but because he had arrived there, he was living, I believe, in like a halfway house at the time, and he had arrived to Petaluma hoping to like locate his mother's home and visit her that evening, like into the night. He never found it. Never found her house. And like, I guess...
Well, he got distracted by wanting to do something else.
Yeah. And I don't think he was even in contact with his mom. I hope this like lets you in on just like how his mind operates and how disconnected this guy really is. Like he's very off and doesn't think very clearly. And when he couldn't find her home, he just started wandering the streets that night of Petaluma. This is the story that they're building. So they've got their guy. They can't confirm it because surprisingly, it didn't take, terribly long to find him. But they're pretty sure it has got to be him. Most of the puzzle pieces are fitting, and they actually end up pulling the two girls from the sleepover, Kate and Jillian, because they want to do a lineup just to be sure. Can they pick him out of a lineup? Is this 100% our guy? Within seconds, they do.
Oh my God.
He is unmistakable. Even though his facial hair had changed a little bit, it had been months since the abduction. They could not forget the face. They knew it was him. But now police had the task of trying to prove this, because thus far, once they let him in on the suspicions that he may be behind Polly's abduction, he is denying. He doesn't know that girl. He's not familiar with the town. He wasn't there. Like, he's just basically stonewalling the whole thing. But then come a sweeping array of forensic finds that would really sink this. Remember that palm print that was collected? Now we've got someone to compare it to. And it is a 100% match.
Of course.
There is no denying it now. So thank God for the miracle of like modern forensics, because in some instances I could imagine, I'm like, before fingerprinting or any of this, I'm like, what could you do? Like, if it's kind of his word against theirs, I mean, you can't really, it just makes their case weaker unless they've got something concrete like a print, because there is no way to explain his palm print being in her bedroom.
Yeah. Other than, I guess, having the girls pick him out. But it's like, would that count as like circumstantial? Like them saying like, that's him?
I don't know. I mean, it's a witness statement, so I'm sure they could take the stand to try to make the case for the prosecution. But does not feel as concrete as something that can be proven like a print.
Scientific,
it becomes, it's a he said versus she said. And I'm sure his defense would argue like, it's just their word, they could be mistaking him for any number of people, etc.
Yeah.
But at this point, Richard won't talk. He has refused to admit his involvement. And when he was confronted with the proof of the print in the bedroom, I think that was the moment that they really cornered him, and he realized there was maybe no way to explain his way out of that. There is no feasible way that his print, again, would be in that bedroom unless he had been in that home on the night of the abduction. But he's still stonewalling, and they still have a very big issue on their hands. Where is Polly? Once he realizes that they're teasing conversations of the death penalty, and they're throwing the print in his face, I think that's when it clicks for him that he's not going to be able to corner or climb his way out of this corner. And he decides to cooperate. Finally. So he agrees to confess to what he did. He abducted Polly Klaas, and he admits that she has been killed, and he can lead them to the body.
Oh gosh. No.
It's a horrible, horrible devastation for everyone in this case. But I think one that they were preparing for. 2 months into this.
I mean, I was already preparing. Once you mentioned the little girl's tights found, I was like, her body's going to be around there somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, they were searching the whole area of Dana's property, and like up until, I guess it's like a mountainous area, they were searching into the mountains, like some of the remote sections where they're like, where would somebody dump a body? But they didn't find anything, even with the dogs. So he really is the key to finding where Polly might be. So what is the story here now that we've got a confession out of this guy? So Richard had gotten permission while he was living in that halfway house that I mentioned to do like, I think a 1 evening or 1 night visit with his mother in Petaluma, which is why he was traveling there. He did not call her, and he could not locate the house. And this is on the night of October 1st. According to him, and we're going to take this with a grain of salt because we'll learn from his trial that he tends to play with the truth and play with his story a little bit, but we definitely know he was there and he was on foot. And I believe he got kind of loaded up on booze, and he bought weed from somebody who was just walking down the street in Petaluma. So he's high and he's drinking and he's wandering around town. He's got his car there though. And I think that this is the moment where they were able to prove intent of what he was planning to do, that this wasn't as opportunistic of like he stumbled into someone's yard and just like did what he did. While he was in his car, this is where he started cutting up pieces of cloth because he was planning to make restraints, because he was going to go. He didn't know who, but he was going to go into someone's home and tie somebody up. I'm unsure if he was planning to do it initially as a robbery and then it turned into a kidnapping of this young girl. But this was what they realized, because I think the way they were able to put 2 and 2 together. And if you want to scroll down to the last like couple of pages, you will actually see some of the forensic evidence they collected of these strips of fabric that he cut out, the cloth.
If they
Do you
look
see
so
that?
thin. Yeah.
They're laminated. I know. Well, that's the thing. I think what was really restraining the girls was fear. I don't think they were
Yeah.
properly kind of tied up because, again, they were able to wiggle out of it. I think they were
Mm-hmm.
just terrified to move.
Yeah.
But again, he was planning to do something. So then after that, what he says he did was that he got on foot with this stuff in hand and he picked a house at random. He happened to pick this one because he heard the voices of the young girls through a window and he thought it might be an easy target. So he lurked in that yard for close to 90 minutes. There was an open window on the lower level downstairs. It was unlocked. He climbed through that window very discreetly. And then he says he blacked out, which I don't believe, but that is the story he is stuck to. He says he blacked out, doesn't remember what happened. And his next recollection was that he was in his car driving when he came to. And Polly, this little girl, is in his passenger seat. And she is sobbing. And she is restrained. He didn't know what to do except to drive to a wooded area, which is when he drove all the way out to Dana's property. And he goes on that dirt road. And that's where his car did get stuck. Now, because the car is stuck, he starts to panic because he's like having to get out of the car. She's still in the passenger seat. She's terrified and she's crying. And he's nervous that if somebody's going to come up the road and stop, or if he has to call somebody to come and tow him out, they're going to ask questions about this girl in his seat. So he then remembers he took her out of the passenger seat, threw her over his shoulder like a fireman's carry, and walked her into the wood line and laid her on the ground 30 meters away from this like dirt road. And he told her to remain quiet or he would kill her. And then he says that's when the whole situation came of Shannon pulling up and she was reporting that there was a guy trespassing on the property. And then the police came. That true, if it's true, I mean, there are some people that, again, take his story with a grain of salt. But if it's true, it means that the entire duration of police pulling up to him, questioning him, searching the car, doing the sobriety test, searching his person, Polly was 30 meters from that road in the woods, remaining silent through fear.
Oh my God.
If he had been arrested that night for any number of reasons, like if he had been taken away for drinking and driving, for the trespassing, and his car was just left there, it's very possible the night would have gone into the morning and somebody would have found Polly if she was alive.
Mm-hmm.
If she had just screamed or something. I could not shake that. I'm like, that's why I was saying in the beginning, I'm like, this case is one of those where like any which way the wind blew, like something random was going to happen. Like Polly wasn't an initial target. She just happened to be a house that was close to where he was walking and a voice he heard through the window.
My gut says she was not alive. And I don't know if you'll disprove that or later, but I just feel she seems like I feel like the second she saw, if she could see them, like cop lights coming on, she would have started running out there and done something.
I had wondered that too. I was like, because once she saw police, if she could see them, I actually couldn't think. I'm like, how far is 30 meters, like feet wise? Because it could have been that she didn't see the cop lights, although cop lights are pretty easy to spot from a very far distance.
Yeah. 30
but
meters.
I think police use that as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty far, but it's not that far.
Would it be like 90 feet, 100 feet?
I'm like, let me do some real time. Not that I have to, but hold on.
Because a meter is 3 feet, no? Am I wrong?
Yeah, about 98 feet.
98 feet. Okay, yeah. 90 or 100 feet. I think you would still be able to see. Yeah, you would be. Is that a football field?
Sorry, that's 100 yards.
Oh, it's like a football field is 98 feet.
Creepers, we will never learn our lesson to not do metrics.
You got to just stop like throwing out like statements.
Like, oh my God.
The grave is being dug for you.
That is, at this point, I need to shut my laptop and give you my resignation.
Like, close the Gemini now. But I agree with you, though. And I think investigators led with that as well. But again, he's stonewalling it because this is his version of events. So police don't actually know. But I would agree with you. I'm like, I don't think she was alive at this point as well, which meant while she was in the passenger seat, if he did get stuck, it might have been that moment where he pulled her out into the woods. And that's where he did what he did, which we would eventually learn from his story. He strangled Polly to death. But according to his story, if we are to believe his version of events, he would then lead police out to Cloverdale, which they insisted on the very night of his confession. They did not let this wait till morning. The very night they got him in a car and they said, take us to the scene right now. And it was like this like rural farmland, like a field. And he led them out into it and he unveiled Polly's body, which was hidden, I think, near like a farm structure under some planks of wood. I think that read to me as like floorboards, but I don't think it was floorboards. And I don't think he was savvy enough to like hide a body under floorboards. I think he just put planks of wood on top of her.
Yeah, probably like found whatever was nearby to cover up.
Very like quick and dirty. But I had wondered, this was the thing that kind of threw me off, because I'm like, if he did kill her in the woods on Dana's property, why then put her back in the vehicle and drive all the way out to Cloverdale to like just dump her in like a farmland area?
Probably because he knew police had been near that area. Like there was a last marking,
That's a
like
good point,
last
yeah.
known sight of him was around here. So it'd be a probable place to search, I guess, if they ever got on his tail later on.
Even that is impressive that he would have the forethought to like think about that.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, the only thing that made sense in my mind, if it wasn't that, where he's like, well, they've got a record of me because they pulled me over on this, dirt road. If it wasn't that, I'm like, was it possible Polly really was alive?
Yeah.
I also think, because there was tape found on the ground out there, I think it is possible she was still gagged or her mouth was still covered.
Mm-hmm.
I'd always imagined, I'm like, that can't be easy to get out of. But I had always imagined, I'm like, it must be, I would think it's like easier than most people think to get your mouth out of duct tape, but maybe not.
It's also just like so hard to tell since we never knew Polly personally. Like I'm going off of a gut feeling that I feel like she would be the type of kid to just break free and like try. But I don't know what it's like when you're that age and you're in that situation, and like how scary he had been in the car. Like he could have really scared the crap out of her while they were driving together.
I thought a little bit about the Moscow, like the Idaho murders, and the roommate that was in the home after the perpetrator, Brian, had broken in and the murders took place, and how there was so much mystery around a roommate who remained in the home until morning without calling anyone and basically immobile. And I thought a bit about that scenario of being so petrified and in such a state of shock that you almost become catatonic and frozen in place, because I think that was the story, that she was frozen in her bedroom for hours and
just
hours and
paralyzed.
hours and couldn't think of what to do. Like couldn't rationally think. And I had wondered if something similar could have been happening, or Polly may have been experiencing in this fear of what's been going down for the last couple of hours.
Yeah, it's totally possible. It seems unlikely, but it's possible.
Well, at this point, Polly is dead, but she has finally been found and returned to her family. So to round out towards the end of this case and just talk a little bit about Richard and where this would go with his trial. So Richard was tried, and I believe he faced 10 counts from the prosecution. They were seeking the death penalty, even though they had sort of teased that they could make a deal with him before if he had confessed to something. I think they were able to like brush that off the table once they realized they had enough information and enough evidence, proof to convict him regardless of his confession. Though it took years to reach the trial, I believe it did not start until 1996. It would only last 10 days before Richard was found guilty and sentenced to death. For the conviction, I believe it included murder, kidnapping, burglary, and attempted lewd acts upon a child, which I was still waiting to see if there was anything from an autopsy that suggested there was sexual assault. I don't believe they would have been able to get him on that charge unless there was some evidence of that, but I did not find anything concrete that explicitly said something happened to her body. I don't have a ton of information about the very ending of the trial, but there was a rumor about what went down in the courtroom, where after the judge had, declared the sentencing, Richard stood up and gave the middle finger to the judge. And again, I think everybody was really done with him at this point, between like the jury, both defense and prosecution, and the judge, because he had been like twisting the story. We've seen this with killers in the past. They just love the moment of attention that they're getting, where people need information from them or they have questions for them. And I actually pulled a quote here from, I believe it was Judge Thomas C. Hastings, who saw over this and eventually would sentence Davis to death. And he said, and I quote, "Mr. Davis, this is always a traumatic and emotional decision for a judge. You made it very easy today by your conduct. I sentence you to death."
Wow.
But you might be surprised to hear, you and the Creepers, that although his sentencing came in August of 1996, Richard is alive today. He remains in a California state prison and has been on death row for nearly 30 years and will most likely never die by lethal injection. He will never be put to death. He will die in prison. So the reason for that, the sentencing came, I believe, at a time in California where the death penalty was still very much a thing, and it was a sentencing that would be carried out. But there has not been a prisoner put to death in California since, I believe, 2006, I wrote, because of a lot of different laws that had changed. So the death penalty is effectively not a thing in California anymore. So now he is a man in his 70s, and there is very little known, I believe, about his current affairs in prison, or if there has been any other additional like admission to the crime or what his perspective is on it. And honestly, I don't really care to hear his perspective on it. But
Yeah.
I wanted to run you through just a little bit of what a California state prison is like for somebody who is a death row inmate, even if there is no feasible plan that they will eventually be put to death. I just wanted to tell you what his life might be like. Reportedly, Richard does live in a death row unit, and he is only allowed out of his cell for a couple of hours each day. He's only allowed out for showers and meals. He cannot interact with other prisoners freely. He does not have privileges to join in any work programs, any group activities. He cannot do anything recreational. Visitations are also extremely limited, and there are virtually none. There is no one in his life who cares to visit him or who idolizes him, thank God. And almost every time that he is permitted to leave his cell, he needs to be fully restrained by officers. Doesn't matter how far or how short the distance is that he's walking, he needs to be fully restrained because he does not have privileges to exit his cell freely when he is allowed out. So for nearly 30 years, this man, if you can imagine it, has faced the punishment that in my eyes could be worse than death. It is really isolation and a complete stripping of all freedoms.
Yeah.
He lives in a box.
That picture of him on the last page, Creepers, where at the bottom right, I mean, that's about to put me in an early grave. He looks so unwell and unhealthy and scary. Imagine
the pictures of him when he was younger too. I mean, just I couldn't shake that feeling and that imagery as well of like the girl seeing that man enter the bedroom.
Oh my God.
But speaking of the girls, I guess I could just talk a little bit and sort of round out the aftermath of this and what the legacy of Polly's life means to her family and to this town. Because after her abduction and the confirmation of her death, there was a tremendous impact on this city. And I would also say on true crime coverage at large and just the way cases like this are handled in the media and what kind of changes can be implemented that can prevent something like this from happening again. But in the wake of her murder, Polly's father, this is Mark Klaas, he became a child advocate and he actually established a foundation. It was called the Polly Klaas Foundation. I think it was formerly the Klaas Kids Foundation, and it was aimed at connecting with families that have children that have gone missing or have been abducted and really offering them resources and support. I believe that foundation was in operation for many decades, and he actually just recently retired in the last couple of years, so he has closed the foundation. I hope I'm not off on the years on that, but her case also marked significant calls for updates to a police bulletin system and a broadcast system, specifically for the California Highway Patrol, because there was a lot of criticism about the fact that the search efforts and the FBI, had ramped up on night one, August 1st, when Polly was abducted. But at the same time, police were questioning, counties over the perpetrator, but there was just no confirmation that they had heard about Polly's abduction or knew of a man who fit that description because it was never broadcast on their radio system. Could things have been different if it was?
Yeah.
If everybody in California, or at least the neighboring counties, was informed that there is a man who fits this profile who might be on the run and he might have a little girl in his car. Her town also opened a performing arts space in her name. This was in 1998, and I believe they called it Polly's Performing Arts. Is there a name that I put there? There were two names.
Polly Klaas Community Theater.
They switched the name at one point because I believe it had to close down in the early 2000s because of like structural issues, and there was a funding issue. But then over the years, they raised enough money to reopen it. So I believe as of 2021 or 2022, they reopened the community theater. And it is, again, to remember her legacy and remember her love for theater. And I just wanted to sort of button the end of this up by talking about like how her town remembers her, because Polly, once she was eventually returned, her family had her body cremated and went with her friends to scatter her ashes into the ocean and give her that freedom. And I want that to be the sentiment that is remembered in Polly's story, and not that terrible night of what happened on October 1st and Richard's part in this. I don't know that I can say I feel satisfied with the outcome of what's come from his trial and his sentencing, but I wanted to reassure people listening that he has lived in captivity for all these years and complete isolation. He has no freedom and he has no people around him.
And it shows, by the way.
And he will continue to live that way until he dies behind bars. So with all of that said, that is everything that I know of Polly's story, of this case, and the outcome of her legacy and what happened to Richard. And I want to thank you and the Creepers, for listening to it, because it is a very different case. I don't usually cover ones that have kind of a classic true crime end to them, but that's...
Yeah, the closure element.
Yeah.
It's funny because I've been thinking about how it's sitting so differently for me. It's incredibly sad, of course, but I was thinking back to the Dexter killer case, and which has similar closure to it as well. But in that case, it's not that it makes anything better in either scenario, but like with that killer, Mark Twitchell, I was just thinking about how at least you can look at him and go, okay, this guy was like totally out of reality, like had this whole narrative in his mind that he was like basically like a vigilante TV serial killer. There's some like path I can follow there as to why it sort of spiraled. I look at Richard Allen Davis and I'm just like, you MRFer. Like, you showed up and you just did this for like, it was just like a one night thing for him. Like, there was no thought to it. And like the fact that it was so opportunistic just makes it so much more incredibly difficult for me personally to like, it's such a tough pill to swallow for me. It just sucks.
It was hard to rationalize. It just seems, one, unlikely, but two, senseless. It is senseless. And again, I can't speak entirely to his motive because he is cryptic in the way that he talks about what he was doing and what he remembers. And I just don't believe much of what he says. But it did seem to me, at least historically, although he did have a history of abducting women, that maybe he had initially gone into this with the intent of robbery, restraining people in the home and robbing the home, because he had asked those questions, but then quickly lost interest and just wanted to take Polly.
And I think the last thing I'll say is just the fact that he chose, I mean, I don't think he pre-planned this, but the fact that he heard the sound of a little girl's voice, so we do know he chose that, but the fact that he robbed those other two little girls of like their safety, and that's probably lived with them forever. I think that's where my anger just like skyrockets, because it's already bad enough when it's one kid, but the other two children in that scenario are just, they've had to suffer so much. I even was thinking about that with the lineup. I was like, oh my God, for them to have to go in and like look at that face again, that's so traumatic.
It's survivor's guilt too. And the wondering of why was it Polly that was taken?
Yeah.
You know, why Polly? And just the confusion around, again, motive. And I think I wasn't going to go deep into his backstory because there is a ton of information on Richard Allen Davis, but I really wanted to focus most of this on just Polly's case. But maybe if I had done that, I could have colored a little bit more about like his psyche and like his long history with this. But
that's all right.
Yeah,
I'm like,
but
I don't need to know.
But I think, but the thing is, I think people gravitate towards wanting to know those things to try to make sense of the senseless. Like, there will always be questions that we may not have the answers to with this case about why he chose Polly over the two girls, or why he chose any of them. Why didn't he just come in and do a clean cut robbery if that was the initial intent? And because as far as I remember, actually, he had never this was his first kill. He had never actually killed somebody.
Yeah, I kind of like, I sort of suspected that, but again, it's like sort of I guess being a true crime fan, you do come to enjoy finding out the psychological aspect as to why people do these things. But like with him, for some reason, I'm like, I literally don't care, because the fact that I know it was so opportunistic and so senseless, I'm just like, I'm so angry for her family. I'm sure they sit with that all the time.
Yeah, and especially the randomness of this is really what's hard to wrap your mind around. But thank you for going through it with me. I know it was a longer case and there are a lot of like twists and turns, but I just didn't want to miss a single detail with it because I'm like, it really is like there's so much documentation on it because of how heavy the search efforts and the investigative efforts were.
Yeah. Well, thank you for walking me through it. I feel like I'm definitely going to do more of like a deep dive on it too myself, just because of the weight of it, like the amount of coverage it got.
Yeah. And just a few years before JonBenet Ramsey. So thank you again for going into this case with me. Thank you to the Creepers for sticking around for this episode of CreepTime, the podcast. We are going to be back with another episode for you next week. And of course, we are not going to let you down around the holidays. We are going to have an episode then as well, because I know you're going to have a lot of downtime. You're going to want to listen. So thank you guys for sticking around. But for all we can say right now, goodbye.
And good luck, y'all.
We will see you then.
Bye, Creepers.